Ah, boy. The nightmare never ends, does it, chat? It really, really doesn't. We got a whole other story to add on top of the big pile of anti-trans legislation being pushed right now, and this one is definitely one of the worst that I've seen. Florida Medical Board to weigh blocking treatments for transgender youth. This is from CBSNews.com. Tallahassee. The Florida Board of Medicine is slated Friday to consider a proposal by Governor Ron DeSantis' administration to bar physicians from providing treatments such as hormone therapy and puberty blocking medication to transgender youths. So, basically, just you won't be allowed to transition until you're 18, at least in Florida, if this goes through. And that includes puberty blockers, which have been proven to be safe and fine and effective for trans youth, taking them off of that too, not allowing them to take it. Now, we're going to read the whole article, but I want to stop here for just a moment, and I want to tell all of you, this was always the plan. This has always been the plan, and they've got more up their sleeve. Florida's first move, or if we go all the way back to like the whole trans freak out thing, the biggest issue that for a very long time they would straddle onto was the sports thing, because that was something that like the broad majority of people, even trans accepting people, were still a little iffy on whether or not trans women particularly should be allowed to compete against cis women in sports. That's like a very easy issue for the right to just sweep tons of supporters against trans people on, because you can just very easily just say, well, don't you know men are stronger than women? You're a smart person. Use your common sense. Use your common sense. That's how you know we're right. So join our side. Yeah, like, for a very long time, that was the issue that they would like harp on about. And one of the compromises that was made was that, okay, assuming that you haven't gone through, this is particularly for trans women, assuming you haven't gone through a male puberty and done training through that and gotten the benefit of that, then realistically, there should be no extreme or any really strong or existent like benefit or advantage that a trans woman would have over a cis woman. At least not that would be like nothing that would not otherwise be chalked up to just general variance in the abilities of different people. You know, some people just generally are able to run faster and longer than other people at like a base level without practice, you know? Genetics do play a factor. But as long as, in the case of a trans woman, as long as she does not go through a male puberty and does not train and you know whatnot through that male puberty, there is literally, at least when I've read and researched myself, there doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence that there is a like advantage there that trans women would have. So we basically came to the conclusion that, okay, so this basically means that if we want to prevent trans athletes from having an advantage over cis athletes, then maybe we should like provide trans youths with the puberty blockers that have been proven to be effective and safe. Like maybe so they don't go through the wrong puberty. Well, now they're banning it. Isn't that interesting? How are you supposed to not have an unfair advantage as a trans woman in sports if you're not allowed to go on puberty blockers and prevent going through the wrong puberty? How's that? How do you do? You can't. You can't. It was never about there being some sort of inequality in sports. It was never about ensuring there is fairness or analyzing the possibilities of people, you know, the possible cases in which people suffer if we grant more rights and more acceptance to trans people. It was never about that. It was always about taking rights away from trans people. Always. Taking away their ability to get access to healthcare, taking away their ability to transition, taking away their ability to be seen by society as who they truly are. Because if they can take away trans people's ability to transition, essentially, if they can make it illegal, then as far as they're concerned, they can basically erase trans people from society. And worst case scenario, worst case scenario, perhaps dehumanize them enough to make violence against them a broadly acceptable political policy among much of the American population. And that is when the genocide happens. This is not the end of their plan. They will continuously, even though it goes entirely against all of their previous claims of just being, a little bit concerned about the trans thing, even though it goes against all of those previous claims back when they felt like their positions had to be a little bit more covered up. They had to, dog whistle more, stay behind the mask more. Now they don't. Now they have enough power consolidated that they can just do it. Donald Trump has brought in a dynasty of wins for the right. And generations are going to live under this Supreme Court. This completely right, like conservative stacked Supreme Court, generations are going to live under it. The Republicans that Trump put into those seats are young and have decades and decades and decades and decades and decades left to serve. Unless we pack it, not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. The Supreme Court is going to be rolling back more people's rights, particularly LGBT people's rights. And it's going to continue to happen on a state level like this. You have not seen anything yet. Until Republicans have no ability to gain power anywhere, this is going to continue. And it's going to get much worse. They're going after contraceptives. They're going to go after sodomy. They're going to go after gay marriage. They're going to criminalize abortion. They're going to do everything they do to criminalize all of these things, including especially abortion. And you better believe that if the right people, the right dumb fucking people get into power, the kind of Republicans that back in the day said that you could impregnate a woman with a pencil eraser, those types of Republicans, those are the types of people that end up making it illegal to have a miscarriage. Those are the people that propose fines for having a miscarriage, or God forbid, arrest or jail time and charges for having miscarriages. There are Republican politicians who've made propositions like that. They use the idea that they're pro-freedom as a shield against the fact that they're the ones trying to take away as many people's freedoms as they can. Disgusting behavior. The State Department of Health last week filed a petition asking the board, which regulates medical doctors, to start a rulemaking process on the contentious issue. The move came as the State Agency for Healthcare Administration also plans to prevent the Medicaid program from covering such treatments for gender dysphoria. Not surprising. The petition, which is on the agenda for a Board of Medicine meeting in Broward County, proposes what is known as a standard of care that would prohibit patients under age 18 from receiving sex reassignment surgery and puberty blocking, hormone and hormone antagonist treatments. It also would require the older patients sign a consent form and then wait 24 hours before starting such treatments. So even after you're 18 years old, you have to sign a consent form and wait at least 24 hours to get treatment, even once you are 18 if this gets passed. Signed by Department of Health General Counsel John Wilson, the petition pointed to what it said was a lack of quality evidence and certainly no conclusive research to support the medical transition of children to the opposite gender as a treatment for gender dysphoria. This is a simple lie. This is just not reflected by any means in the broader medical consensus. Children do not possess the cognitive or emotional maturity to comprehend the consequences of these invasive and irreversible procedures, the petition said. By the way, I should say that the board of doctors that has been put together here was a board of doctors put together by the Republican administration. This isn't like some, board of hardcore academics who have, very strong and well substantiated and good backgrounds and everything. These are just Ben Carson tier guys. We're talking imagine an entire fucking committee of Ben Carsons. All right, that's what we're talking about here. These are not well trustworthy doctors that give a shit about the medical consensus or what the DSM-5 says or what the science says. They are very much politically motivated, and it's going to be very, very, very scary. This is going to pass. This is almost certainly going to pass. But in a July 14th letter to Board of Medicine Chairman David Diamond and other board members, a group of professors and clinicians from Yale University, the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and the University of Texas Southwestern, disputed the state's conclusions about treatments for gender dysphoria. The letter also said establishing a standard of care to prevent such treatments would violate legal protections against discrimination and harm tens of thousands of Floridians. So we've got large medical institutions coming out, like academic and medical institutions coming out to speak against this. Not surprising. We are concerned that any action by the Board of Medicine to ban or curtail standard medical care in Florida for individuals with gender dysphoria would set a troubling national precedent, the letter said. The federal government defines gender dysphoria clinically as significant distress that a person may feel when sex or gender assigned at birth is not the same as their identity. But treatment for transgender people and youths in particular has become a fiercely debated political issue in Florida and other states. Prominent medical groups and the Biden administration support treatments for gender dysphoria, while many Republicans, such as DeSantis, have argued the treatments should not be provided to people under 18. This is just the acceptable position to hold right now. Right now, it isn't very socially acceptable to say that transgender adults ought to be denied the ability to transition, because that is a very direct, imposing on the freedom of autonomous adults. However, when it comes to children, it's very easy to, make a whole other case here. It's very easy to get people, worried about the kids and worried about the kids thinking they're trans and accidentally transitioning and then regretting it later. So it's really easy to get people, on board with this kind of stuff, which is why they're sticking with the under 18 thing right now. But they're already sliding it towards the adults. They added a bit in this proposition that even after you're 18, even once you're an adult, you still have to wait 24 hours through a grace period to get treatment, get access to gender-affirming treatment. After, you have to sign a consent waiver first. Now, 24 hours isn't a lot. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll come in tomorrow. But that's still a hurdle. And when they're already starting to put down tiny hurdles in front of adult trans people, or trying to get treatment, and saying, oh, no, we're just worried about the kids. Well, 2 years ago, it was just worried about trans sports. That was all it was a concern about trans people competing in sports with cis people. That's all it was. That was really the main thing they were complaining about 2 years ago. And now they're talking about banning gay marriage, contraception, and all access to gender-affirming care for minors, regardless of the medical backing it has. They will constantly, you give them an inch, they will take a fucking mile. They will go after adults too. If you are a 28-year-old living in Florida, they're going to do everything in their power to make it illegal for you to get access to gender-affirming care. And you know what they're going to say to you and to the public while they do it? That they're protecting you from making a mistake. That they're keeping you safe from yourself. That's what they'll say to you and to the public. But do you want to know what they'll be saying to their fans? To their follower bases? That you're a pedophile predator that they've prevented from grooming more kids by existing. That's what they'll be saying to their fan bases and their followers at their rallies and stuff, and on Twitter. Last week's petition filed the Board of Medicine was rooted in guidance that the Department of Health issued on April 20th that said treatments such as puberty-blocking medication and hormone therapy should not be used for transgender youths. Florida Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo also issued a statement at the time blasting federal directives that back treatment for transgender youths. By the way, just because these people are doctors does not mean that what they believe or what they're saying is backed up at all by the broader medical consensus. If you want to know what the broader medical consensus is, how about this? If you don't trust me, because I know that I get a lot of viewers in my videos that'll just be like, you say that, but what's your proof? Here's my proof. Go Google DSM-5 gender dysphoria or transgender, and go look what the DSM-5 says about gender dysphoria and treatment. It's really not that long. It's they summarize the basics of it in 1 or 2 paragraphs on there. You can literally just bring up a PDF of the entire thing, Control F, search for transgender or gender dysphoria, and see exactly what the current medical consensus is on this entire issue. Reminder, the DSM-5 is, at least here in America, basically the doctor handbook. It is the handbook for medical professionals in general. It has everything from physical ailments to mental everything. Just everything's in there pretty much. It's like the fucking Bible of doctoring. So go check that out yourself if you want to see what the current overwhelming consensus is, and not hear what a bunch of conservative doctors that were selected for a committee by Republicans believe. How you say that, but the say blue, huh? I have no fucking idea what that's supposed to mean, Crystal Ignition, but good. Okay. It was about injecting political ideology into the health of our children, Lopato said. Children experiencing gender dysphoria should be supported by family and seek counseling, not pushed into an irreversible decision before they reach 18. By seek counseling, they mean conversion therapy. That's what that means. The trans counseling, like all of the research done on this, would overwhelmingly suggest, yeah, if you have gender dysphoria, you need to transition. The Agency for Healthcare Administration, which runs most of the Medicaid program, also, by the way, any doctor who uses these words, it was about injecting political ideology into the health of our children. Like, when doctors are literally doing the injecting political ideology, like the language of a Ben Shapiro fan being used by the supposed doctor, this expert on this issue, should be a red flag. The Agency for Healthcare Administration, which runs most of the Medicaid program, used the Department of Health's health guidance as a springboard to propose a rule that would bar Medicaid coverage for the treatments. In turn, the Department of Health petition last week cited a report that the Agency for Healthcare Administration has used to support its proposed Medicaid rule. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time reading aloud right now. Hey, T. That report, whose authors included doctors and researchers who oppose medical care for gender dysphoria, said the Medicaid program, quote, has determined that the research supporting sex reassignment treatment is insufficient to demonstrate efficacy and safety. But the Yale, the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and University of Texas Southwestern professors and clinicians issued a report last month sharply criticizing the report used by the Agency for Healthcare Administration. Quote, we are alarmed that Florida's healthcare agency has adopted a purportedly scientific report that so blatantly violates the basic tenets of scientific inquiry. Jesus Christ! The professors and clinicians wrote, quote, the report makes false statements and contains glaring errors regarding science, statistical methods, and medicine. Holy fucking shit. Multiple academic and medical institutions came together to write an open letter to the government of the state of Florida and trying their best to sound as professional and like non-insulting as possible, using like their professional, like getting the point across, but in the most light words possible. This is how they had to word it. This should go to show how bad this was. We are alarmed that Florida's healthcare agency has adopted a purportedly scientific report that so blatantly violates the basic tenets of scientific inquiry. That means that the data they use, the stuff they collected, doesn't even follow the scientific method. The report that they are citing to push this thing doesn't even follow the scientific method. Why is that? Because the people that are pushing this shit and trying to take away the rights of trans people don't give a fuck about science. If they did, they would not have the positions they hold. The professors and clinicians continued to write, the report makes false statements and contains glaring errors regarding science, statistical methods, and medicine. And this is basically what Florida is adopting as their entire group to decide how they ought to handle medical situations. Florida is fucked. In preparation for Friday's meeting, the Board of Medicine posted 1,113 pages of documents on its website related to gender dysphoria treatment. Along with the petition, those documents include numerous studies about treatment. The petition is an initial step in a process that would include drawing up the details of a proposed standard of care rule and taking public comment. And that's the end of it. So, things are going to get a lot fucking worse in Florida. I don't really know what advice I can give. if you're trans and a minor out there, I used to be really I talked about this on stream the other day. I used to be really iffy on DIY HRT and DIY puberty blockers, DIY etc. For youths, because it's like it would be much preferable to go through a doctor and a medical professional and all of that. But like once you've met so many fucking trans people who are like 16 or 17 or even like 18 or older, who are still living with their parents or living with family or whatever, who are like unaccepting of who they are and they have to hide that they're trans or whatever, and like they can't get access to HRT or hormone blockers or whatever. It's really hard to be against DIY HRT when you've met and talked to so many people whose only fucking chance is DIY HRT. All the information you need to be informed on DIY hormone replacement therapy. Yep, right there. Cleo just posted in chat a link to DIYHRT.wiki. So if you're looking for anything that could help you with this, then perhaps that website would be helpful. So yeah, DIYHRT.wiki. Puberty can start at different ages based on the person. So that's the thing. There cannot be a set standard of care for this. That's the problem. What Republicans are trying to do when it comes to setting this really rigid standard of care for trans youth and just trans people in general is basically the same reason why conservatives try to create such a rigid definition of racist. You know? Like, you know how when you argue with a conservative, they really, really, really have to try to die on the hill with the only possible definition of racist and the only possible case in which someone is racist is when they openly say that they believe their race is more superior than someone else's race. Like, conservatives will really, really try to rigidly pigeonhole the definition of racism so that, like, nothing really can be racist except for, like, a Klan member burning a black person alive, basically. Like, that's about as, like, besides that, like, even then, I feel like most conservatives would say, well, how do you know he burned that guy because he was black? I mean, come on. There's no evidence that this was a racially motivated crime. Even then, conservatives would try to defend it. But, like, yeah, I don't even know where I was coming from with this. I'm sure I had a good point I was getting to, but I'm just so blown away by the fact I'm so blown away by the fact that there is an entire team of doctors out there, an entire board of medicine that is basically going to dictate the way that my ex-home state, the state that I grew up in, is going to handle the way that they cover medical things, like as far as the state handles it. And the fact that the doctors on that board are more stupid and wrong than me, whose medical knowledge begins and ends at lifeguard. I can give CPR. I could trach somebody. I could use I can use the fucking shock thing, the AED. I can I can save someone from drowning. But like somehow my research and reading medical papers and the DSM-5 research that you can do on fucking Google with like a little bit of elbow grease and the desire to actually think critically and not just listen to what your favorite political commentator tells you. By the way, don't take my word for any of this shit. Google it. Fact check me. Do it. I dare you. Fact check me. Google it. Don't go to your favorite Ben Shapiro video and listen to what he tells you. Go fact check it. Go find a study, if you disagree with me, that proves it wrong. Go find an overwhelming meta-analysis or overwhelming consensus of studies there is none. That's the thing. This is a rhetorical request, that there is none. You'd be wasting your time. Regardless, though, the fact that these fucking quacks, these clowns, these fucking liberals, these I don't know why I call them liberals. Very high right now. These fucking nincompoops are running my fucking state. And the way that it handles caring for people's medical emergencies is absolutely fucking insane. And the fact that there are medical and academic institutions coming together to write open letters to the state's government in which they openly, and in as kind words as they possibly can, and yet they are still scathing, condemn the entire state's handling of this situation and call them out for like the draft they've written up for being just blatantly anti-scientific, goes to show how brave the right has gotten. They are no different than flat earthers. I used to say they're no different than anti-vaxxers because there was a time when being an anti-vaxxer was seen as being one of the most shameful, ridiculous, and like anti-intellectual things you could be. Remember back in the day when like anti-vaxxers were just seen as just as dumb as flat earthers, where like everybody, even conservatives, like most conservatives would make memes about like dead anti-vaxxers, dead children, like the edgy memes. Like now, anti-vax is just the standard of the far right, or not even of the far right, just the right in general. Trump was pushing anti-vax shit. Going back to before he was elected, Trump was saying anti-vax shit. They truly are fucking degrading into the most flanderized version of themselves. The right of today is literally the right of like cartoon parodies in the early 2000s and 90s. Like I don't think I've seen as much open hostility towards LGBT people from the US government towards, I mean, queer people in general since like the Reagan era and the AIDS epidemic. Just the outright like fuck LGBT people, fuck this group of people, they're bad, coming from government officials nonstop. Because that's what's happening. Like when Nancy Reagan would just say AIDS is a gay disease and we're not going to try to stop this horrible party disease like that the degenerate gays are getting, and they just completely ignored it. Like that level of like, go fuck yourself, gays, go die. That I haven't seen this level of hatred and animosity since like the Reagan era. The Reagan era is like the last time it was this openly hostile. And we're doing, the monkeypox thing is basically the same thing. Oh my God, I saw this fucking post. There was a guy on the fucking subway with monkeypox who was just on the subway hanging out because clearly he thought it's you can't spread it through, it must not, either the guy didn't think it was monkeypox because he's like heard the whole like, oh, it's a gay disease, so you can't get it unless you have gay sex thing. And apparently, even if he knows he has it, then apparently he believes that you can only spread it through gay sex, so it's fine to go walking around with monkeypox and like sitting on trains and rubbing up and bumping up against people because they've been convinced it's a disease that spreads basically exclusively through gay sex, but it doesn't. You can get it from contact. Like him doing that is literally just like the equivalent of some dumb fuck conservative who's been brainwashed into thinking masks don't work and COVID isn't real and coughing on people on the bus. He's basically doing that. And it's because he's been brainwashed, no doubt, by conservatives into thinking monkeypox is the gay sex disease. Another gay sex disease. People have tried to defend the whole like monkeypox as gaypox thing as saying, well, it's not exactly the same as the AIDS epidemic because they're specifically saying that you should get vaccinated if you are gay. So it's actually the exact opposite. And it's like, well, yeah, but now people are saying it's a gay disease, and now people are treating it as though they can only get it if they have gay sex, and they can only spread it if they do. Which is, wrong, and spreading medical misinformation ought to be, something we look down on, I'd guess. NYC requires you have active sex with multiple partners to get the vax. My understanding is that I think it's either or all of these things, of these standards you have to meet in order to get the monkeypox vaccine. Be gay or gender non-conforming, with having and also having had multiple sex partners within the last 2 weeks. I believe that was what it said. It didn't just say you have to be gay or gender non-conforming. I think it said you also have to have had at least like 2 sex partners or 3 sex partners in the last couple of weeks or last month or whatever. And then there was a couple of. It also said just in general, if you've had multiple sex partners, you can get it, I think, as well. And I believe another one was like if you traveled the cert. I forget exactly, but there was standards that were set up, and the ones that everyone was paying attention to were the being gay or gender nonconforming standard. And yeah, crazy shit. I don't even know. I don't even know how I'm supposed to like end the segment. I don't even know what advice I can give. I guess the DIY HRT thing. Get the fuck out of Florida. Get out. If you can get out, then please get out. There's nothing else I can do. I will try to build a fucking rocket and get as many of you guys out of there as possible. Okay. We'll yeah, buy a gun. Buy a fucking gun. Go online and figure out how you go through the process to get your permits for gun ownership in Florida. It's probably not too strict. I know it's very strict in Well, it's not. I mean, it takes a few months in California, but it probably doesn't take too long in Florida. Maybe like a month or two. So, yeah, get a gun. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like, subscribe, ring the bell icon. It helps my channel out more than you even realize, and it's how YouTube knows to actually tell you when I go live or upload new videos so you guys can come watch me. And of course, if you want to support me financially, you can always do so by donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or supporting me on YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, or Patreon. This is my full-time job, and without your support, I wouldn't be able to do this for a living, and I'm trying to save up money so I can rent a house up in Seattle and start raising up quail and incorporating that in my content, and takes a lot. So we're saving up for it. So if you want to help out, then feel free to donate. If you want to see my social media, especially my Twitter, which is where all the spiciest memes happen, then definitely go to the link down below and follow my Twitter and all my other social media. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.